This is ContactTalkRadio.com. Consciousness in action. And you are taking action into your consciousness by tuning into Contact Talk Radio.
And on TuneIn.com, Hing.fm, and UpSnap Mobile.
Contact Talk Radio.
Welcome to You Are What You Love, your window into the future of spirituality. We're going to talk to you about your life and the evolution of your soul while we bring alive the essence of eternal truth. So here is your host, the author of You Are What You Love, Vaishali.
Welcome to another exciting episode of You Are What You Love. I'm your hostess, Vaishali, and today we are joined by astrologer Donna Stellhorn. Donna, in addition to being an astrologer, also is an author, and she has a YouTube presence. So, Donna, welcome back to You Are What You Love, darling.
Hi, Vaishali. I'm happy to be back.
So, Donna, for people who are listening to the show, and obviously they're going to be highly entertained and informed by what you want to share with us, but at the beginning of the show, if they want to go check you out online while you're sharing, where would you suggest that they go and find out about your YouTube channel and your website and anything else you want to direct them to?
Yeah, I would love if everyone would check out my YouTube channel. It's just put in Donna Stellhorn and you'll be able to find it. And there you're going to find videos on this particular eclipse that we have just had. I am working on the video for the solar eclipse that's coming up, so that's going to happen in the next day or so. And there's also a lot of videos about feng shui.
Oh, nice. Cleaning up the energy all the way around.
Indeed, yes.
And we just had a lunar eclipse at the end of May. And I know we're getting ready to careen into a solar eclipse on the 7th. So maybe, sweetheart, you might start by letting people understand from an astrological point of view what eclipse is about. I mean, on the most basic literal level, we're looking at our shadow, but you can unpack that statement in a myriad of different ways. So I'm just going to go ahead and hand the baton to you, honey, and let you run with it.
Sounds good. So eclipses bring change. And the lunar eclipse that we just had, lunar eclipses bring an internal change, whereas the solar eclipse that we're having on June 10th brings an external change. And the external change usually comes because you feel blocked in an area. Now, it is oftentimes, especially with listeners like would come to you who are spiritually aware, you probably know what the changes are going to be happening because you'll get signs from the universe. But for some people, this eclipse could be a surprise for them, a loss of a job, having to move, a change in their relationship. So eclipses, when you're not paying attention, can be really disruptive. But for those who are paying attention, who have some, who are on a spiritual path, oftentimes the eclipse is just that little push forward where you remember, oh yeah, I need to get my car registered, or you know, that I do need to sit down with my boss and talk about my hours with him, or you know, that I need to pay more attention to my diet. So depending on where the eclipse hits in your chart will tell us more about what those changes are, but you will receive signs going forward about what this change is going to be.
And these changes, I'm assuming, excuse me, I'm assuming they might be what we would label positive changes, or they might be what we would try to run away from as a challenging change?
Well, that's a great question. So traditionally, it fell in the disruptive or challenging category. But I think that in modern times, we can look at it as though you are on the ocean. And so you could be hit by a wave, or you could be the surfer and have the surfboard and ride the wave. So in that case, then you are going to look back at the changes or disruption that happens at this time. You'll look back in a few months and say, I am so happy that happened. I needed this change. And that is, I rode the wave. I went towards the change and everything worked out.
Are some eclipses more powerful than others, or is this going down to like fingerprints, that it's different for every person depending on where you are in life and where you are in your inner development?
Well, it's interesting because yes, there are some eclipses just in general that are more powerful, but some eclipses will hit some people and then pass up others. For example, if you are born between the 3rd day of any month and the 14th day of any month, you are being hit by this eclipse. Now, some of those hits are going to be a direct, head on kind of punch in the face type. And then some of them are more like a glancing blow, where you get a nudge from the universe to go in a new direction. But that's the 3rd day of any month through the 14th day of any month, then you are being hit by this eclipse.
Oh, okay. I'm going to put on my asbestos underwear, girlfriend. I appreciate the heads up.
Yes, I understand you have a birthday coming up.
Yeah, the day all America mourns. It's like having a birthday on 9/11. Yeah.
So, you're born on September 11th.
No, I was born on June 6th, which is D-Day. I'm just pointing out that historically in our country, it's a day that we mourn and we associate with tragedy, not a day that kids, get excited about their birthday, why everybody else is crying. Yeah.
I see, yes. So you are being hit by this eclipse, and so then you are already starting to receive signs about what should change in your life. And this, when I say should, you are co-creating with the universe. You told the universe, I want to come to this planet, be in a body, and learn these specific lessons. And then every time we get off track, the universe either gently or insists that we get back on track. And so you're probably already getting signs.
Oh, yes, I suspect most people are seeing the writing on the wall that life is about to change big time across the board.
Yes, and so it's interesting because there are certain questions that you could ask yourself, specifically because this is an eclipse that's going to be happening in the sign of Gemini. Gemini types of questions, even if you're not a Gemini types of questions can really help. So you might ask yourself, am I feeling overwhelmed by information? Or do I feel an overwhelming need to acquire information? Am I questioning my memory? Do I need to speak to someone? Do I need to speak to an authority like a lawyer or a doctor? Or do I need to find a teacher or a minister? Do I need to work on my vehicle in some way or my method of transportation? Am I having an issue with neighbors? Is there something I should be writing or teaching? And probably most importantly, do I have secrets that I am afraid will be revealed?
Oh, I didn't think I had any more secrets.
You may not.
It might surprise me if it gets revealed. Who knows? But interesting. But every other thing that you mentioned, absolutely every other thing had been, you could tick off my pay attention to list and you would have gone right down it.
Yes, because you are a Gemini and being hit by this eclipse, you're on a spiritual path, you resonate with these. You have already received the signs, and so you're working on these things. That is, you are getting your surfboard ready to ride the wave.
Yeah. Yeah. Or as those of us who were born and raised during the 60s, I'm getting ready to get on my bad motor scooter and ride.
That's awesome.
And what is the particular influence of this Gemini solar eclipse? What are the highlights?
So with that, this solar eclipse, we're all working on our communication in general. We do live in an age where there is so much information, and it's no longer that we are directing what it is that we want to know or we want to learn. We sometimes are oftentimes taking a more passive view of things and allowing some algorithm to choose what it's going to show us. And this is the more general energy of this eclipse, which the universe is saying, to remind us to ask ourselves whether this is a good idea or not, to have some artificial intelligence decide what we should know. Now, this is also about how we communicate our thoughts to not just others, but to ourselves. Are we saying things to ourselves that we would never say to someone else? Are we harsh to ourselves, or are we mean? Are we unforgiving of ourselves? And so that negative self-talk, which can cause so many problems, the universe is suggesting that there's another way.
I'm glad you brought that up. I think that's a real common defective filter that, I find most people guilty of being human are doing that.
Yes, indeed. So, and then there's a couple other things that this particular eclipse is bringing us. And one of those is that Jupiter now is in Pisces, and it's going to be here for a little while. I didn't write it down, a few weeks. And then it's going to go back into Aquarius, and it will then be back in Pisces at the end of the year. Now, Jupiter in Pisces, while it's wonderful for increasing psychic ability and opening up worlds for art and music and theater, it also is about trying to escape. And so whatever thing that we are addicted to, and I believe everybody can be addicted to something, whatever we're addicted to is going to feel quite compelling to us these days as a coping mechanism. As things open up and we are faced now with not seeing people for a long time, we may have some anxieties just about interacting, or maybe we've gained a few pounds and we don't want to see people yet, or things like that. So we may go into some sort of escape because of the Jupiter in Pisces. So that's one of the things. And the second thing is that Saturn is going to square Uranus for the second time, actually on June 14th. Now, Saturn is our planet of structure and tradition and working hard to really, build your reputation and make a name for yourself. And Uranus is like dynamite. It just comes in and blows up whatever you were doing. So the first time this hit was in February, and it's interesting because the Saturn-Uranus square, one of the key words for it is perseverance. And the day that it hit in February was the day that the Mars rover Perseverance landed on Mars. I just think that's so fascinating. It also is the time where the Texas electrical grid basically, melted. And all of those, melted wasn't the good word, froze. And all those people suffered not just the cold, but then huge bills afterwards. So the structure of what was there was broken.
Yes.
And so what we need to do is we need to look at whatever structure in our life is what we think is sacred or that can never be dismantled, and recognize it's about to, be blown into a million bits. And then from those bits, we're going to rebuild.
Wow, that's very much what's happening in the macro and microcosmic of it all.
Yeah.
And do you have any idea about how long the influence of this eclipse will be felt by us?
So most people will experience some sort of change over the next week or two, and that change will then unfold over a few months. So you may recognize in the next week or two that you need to change residences or leave your job, but the actual event may still take a while to unfold. Now, that's not true for everyone. For some people, especially when they're getting hit hard by the eclipse, it may happen very close to the day of the eclipse itself. Now, there's an interesting phenomenon about the eclipse also, which is that oftentimes I see people planning very important events on the day of the eclipse, and actually this is not something to do. And not just because the eclipse is such disruptive energy, but because energy is blocked. It is the blocking of energy that causes us to make the change. And so, I don't recommend that on June 10th people get married, don't start your business, don't launch your podcast, don't do anything that's major, because the energy is blocked.
Right. So if you want to learn more about blocked results, then go ahead and do things on the 10th, right?
Yes. And what the issue is, and it's not just blocked on that day, but it holds that eclipse energy for the entire time that you are doing that podcast or marriage or whatever. So the block will continue to come up over and over and over again as planets hit that sensitive point.
Good to know. Really good to know. Since we're a part of the cosmos, not apart from it, it's nice to know how to be in harmony with it.
Correct. This astrology is our GPS. It's our way of telling that there's traffic ahead, or that, there is a slowdown, or there's construction, or there's a cliff, and gives us that opportunity to get off the road and change directions. And it's only when we ignore all the signs that our car does sail off the edge.
And the lunar eclipse that was just before this, is there a kind of harmony between the effects or the influence of these two, the eclipses?
Well, sometimes these eclipses do happen to be in opposite signs, but that doesn't always happen. So the eclipse on May 26th was in Sagittarius, and it was more about that internal change where you were starting to feel that something about your communication, either to others or to yourself, or the communication you're consuming, was off. But it's possible that because it's just something that's going on internally, like there's a desire to do something. I can't tell you how many clients in just that period of time said, I need to sit down and write my book or my screenplay. They felt like, I need to get published. So it's that sort of energy of I'm making a decision myself rather than something external happening that's creating a decision for you.
Okay, so obviously having a relationship, listening to yourself in some kind of inner clarity would be particularly important.
And more challenging these days because we have such access to constant, continuous entertainment. When I was a little kid, of course, I had to get up off the sofa to change the channel, and there were only 3 channels at the time. So it was so easy once I was at the TV to just shut it off. But now it's harder and harder to shut it off because it's engineered to get us to not shut it off. So finding some space where there's some quiet can help. But it takes some practice, and meditation helps. Just walking without the little earbuds going, that can help. Being in nature helps.
Rico Suave in the chat room has a question for you, Donna.
Oh, great.
He says, this solar eclipse occurs during Mercury Retrograde. Is that going to influence things?
Well, it certainly doesn't help. So Mercury goes retrograde 3 or 4 times a year. And so it's not that unusual to have this happen. But what Mercury retrograde does, what it's its purpose is not necessarily to disrupt our lives and make our phones go crazy. It is actually so that we will turn around and look at the territory that we have just covered. So picture yourself driving through town, and you see some of it, you see the sights, and you see the neighbors and all this. And then suddenly you're out of town and you say, oh, wait, I missed something. And so you turn the car around and drive back into town to find that thing that you didn't do. And so that's why suddenly you remember that you do need to get your car registration done, or you decide you are going to go paperless, and so you have to figure that part out, or you realize that you haven't talked to your grandma in a long time, and so all of a sudden you add all those tasks to your normal list, and that's why it seems so overwhelming. But the fact that it is happening with the eclipse is, we're already juggling a lot, and then the eclipse comes. So for some people, it can feel like, like they raise their fist to the sky and say, how dare you, universe? Whereas it would be better to say, thank you for helping me get back on my path.
Right. Understanding that everything is here as part of a self-corrective guidance system, if you will cooperate with it.
Yes. And it doesn't necessarily mean surrendering. I know some signs are really good at surrendering, but some of us are still learning that. It is, though, to recognize that you're co-creating, you're in partnership. It is not so adversarial. And so once you recognize that the universe does have your best interests in mind, then it does get easier to make those course corrections.
Right. Yeah, just off of the top of my little fur-covered head. There's not a lot of really strong Leos I know that are really good at surrendering.
Yeah, right. And it's not their job to surrender. But even Leo has in their court, their royal court has an advisor. And so when the advisor suggests something, the king should consider it. And so that's how to look at it.
Right. Being willing to receive wise counsel.
Yes, exactly. Versus perhaps the Pisces, who is up for wherever the flow takes them, or Sagittarius, who says, it's going to be an adventure. I can't wait.
Right. I just want to take a moment and remind our listening audience that if you're enjoying the show, you're listening to astrologer and author Donna Stellhorn. Donna does have a presence on YouTube where you can learn more about astrology and feng shui. And Donna, just go ahead and take a moment and update people again, remind people about your YouTube presence.
Yeah, I've been doing videos at least twice a month for new moon and full moon. And so there's information about these eclipses. And also in the description box of every video, you're going to find links to my courses. I have a course on feng shui for weight loss, as well as an astrology course, Finding the Hidden Money in Your Chart. And so you can find links to that, and then a link to my website where you can get your chart, where you can get readings, and you can sign up for my newsletter.
Oh, really good, juicy stuff.
Thank you.
So, Donna, this particular solar eclipse is also happening in the same month within, a couple of weeks of the summer equinox?
Solstice, actually. So an equinox is when we have spring or fall, when we have an equal amount of time between night and day. And then we have the solstice, which is summer and winter. And in astrology, we call it an ingress. We are ingressing into a cardinal sign. And so the beginning of summer gives us that opportunity to actually, we're supposed to relax a little bit. If we think of it as like a year on the farm, all the planting is done and the seed tending is now starting, the plants are strong enough that they are kind of watching themselves. And so now we have the time to slow down a little bit and to consider our lives. So I think that this particular one, because it is very close to this Saturn-Uranus square, where something in your life may be deconstructing before your eyes, to think of, well, what is it that I do want to build now? You know, if you are looking at your career and saying, you know, in other companies, they're automating my job. You know, like if you're a grocery store checker, you have to be able to look over and say, wow, there's a lot of self-checkouts that are coming up. Maybe there won't be as many checker jobs in the future. And so what else can I be doing? Where else can I be looking? And, you know, as with the internet and all the difficult things it brings, it does bring the amazing thing of so many job opportunities where, you know, we can have side businesses and really pursue things that we like.
Nice. Now, are there any like classic do not do during an eclipse or a solstice or an equinox? Are there some, this is not a good thing to do during these windows of time?
Well, the solstice and any of the ingresses, those are more of a magical time. That's a new beginning. So that would be a great day to start something, you know, like a business or a new relationship, or to move or something like that. Or if nothing else, you just go out and celebrate nature. Whereas, you know, as we were talking about before, the eclipse is more of a day where energy is blocked. And so you don't want to do things that you're going to want to see through. And then all of that, we fold in then the Mercury retrograde. And with Mercury retrograde, you want to do things that you are okay repeating. So if you like vacations, go on vacation during Mercury retrograde. That's perfectly fine. Now, you know, of course, your luggage might go to Baltimore, but you'll eventually get your luggage back. If you are wanting to do some marketing for your business, it's perfectly fine to do that during Mercury retrograde. Just double check the text to make sure that everything's spelled correctly, that there are no major typos. You just want to avoid things on Mercury retrograde that you don't ever want to repeat, you know, like a root canal or a divorce or something like that, because the retrograde energy tends to double things, or it will bring it back on a future retrograde.
Oh my, so a colonoscopy along with divorce court probably is not the way to go.
Yeah, it's, you know, of course, if there is some sort of medical procedure that's required and needs to happen immediately, by all means, do not let the retrograde or even the eclipse stop you, because eclipse does say massive change. And so, you know, that's oftentimes where people who have been waiting for a medical procedure, now suddenly everyone knows it's acute and they need to get in and do it. But if this is something like that is not something you like to repeat very often, for sure, and it can wait, well then absolutely, then wait till after the retrograde. You know, and additionally, things like starting a job is not great during Mercury retrograde. But of course, you know, the new boss may be insisting that you start. And so then it can be challenging. Every time the retrograde comes again, you're thinking, oh, did I make the right decision? Should I really be here? Or worse, they might be thinking that about you. So avoiding that, starting the new things on the retrograde, unless you want to repeat them, it's a good idea.
So let's say you've been trying to make some vacation plans before Mercury went retrograde, and now you're on your third or your fourth attempt to get some of the details worked out. And maybe it's not a vacation, maybe it's, you know, trying to venue for a marriage or a venue for some special event. And you've already tried it 3 or 4 times, and now you're moving into Mercury retrograde. Since Mercury retrograde likes multiples, should you just look at it and go, I've already done multiples. This is fine. It's perfectly empowering. It's useful. I'm going to be a surfer riding that wave, doing this in a time when multiples are useful and efficient.
You're absolutely correct. If you've already started this process outside of the retrograde period, then Mercury retrograde, like us turning the car around and going back into town, is just you completing this. So it's the time where finally it does go through. Finally, you do get the reservations. Additionally, anything that you do want to repeat in future retrogrades is great to start during Mercury retrograde. So I always recommend, start a healthy eating plan or a new diet, a new exercise program during Mercury retrograde. And then even if you fall off the wagon, next time Mercury goes retrograde, you'll feel compelled to do it again. And that helps to solidify the habit.
Oh, very wise. That is a very harmonious way to be in relationship with the energy.
Yes. And in Mercury retrograde, while disruptive, is not the worst thing in the world. So, starting the new job or buying a house or something like that during Mercury retrograde just takes more patience. Trying to start a job on the eclipse, on the other hand, that's far more difficult because that energy is so extreme and so blocked.
Right. And since Mercury is close to the sun and it moves as quickly as it does, we have Mercury retrograde for a short period of time, numerous times during the year. But something like, we don't talk about Pluto retrograde. And I got to imagine that is a longer period of time that doesn't, and it doesn't happen as frequently, but it also lasts longer when you're in it.
Well, actually, Pluto is retrograde for more than 50% of the year. But we're not so bothered by it because Pluto is more of an internal change that's going on within us. So this is us slowly working out issues with our mother or authority or our fear of death or things like that. And we're doing this over a very long period of time. In fact, all the planets do go retrograde. Mercury is the most noticeable because it rules communication and all those little devices that we depend on. Yeah. So it is so noticeable when your phone doesn't work or your car has a flat. Those are Mercury things. Venus also goes retrograde, and it goes retrograde, I'm going to say, Venus has an interesting cycle. So 1 year it'll be 10 months to go all the way around the zodiac, and the next it'll be 14 months. And so I don't think it's retrograde this year. Yeah. Oh, it is December 19th to January 29th. So very end of the year. But Venus retrograde means that something you've purchased you might regret or want to return. So for the Venus retrograde, which happens around Christmas, you would want to get all your Christmas presents with that little gift receipt so that they could return it later.
Oh, nice little practical tip for the outer world. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. And is there anything else about eclipses or about this eclipse that you wanted to share with us, sweetheart?
Yeah, well, I was wondering if your listeners might like me to go around and talk about some of the things it's going to be for each sign. And this is, again, if you're getting directly hit by the eclipse, if you're born between the 3rd or the 14th of any month, you may be feeling this energy. So shall I proceed?
Oh, absolutely. I think you've hit a very useful vein. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to do these signs in pairs. I'm going to do the opposites, so the two opposite signs in pairs. And so this will be for both Aries and Libras. And for you guys, this eclipse may cause you to want to change your looks. You might be doing a new exercise regimen or a new diet. But more importantly, you want to be noticed in a positive way. You want to be appreciated. You'll become quite aware of other people in your life and who you like and who you don't like. You might be getting into a relationship or out of a relationship. And one of the things that you may be doing is asking other people to change. So then that takes us to Taurus or Scorpio. Now, for you guys, it is that you are either wanting to have more in your life or wanting to have more control over it. And by more, that can be money, love, sex, security, trust, support, any of these things, you want to be able to feel that it's really going to be there when you need it. Now, the places and people you've been receiving resources from in the past may be either not as stable, or those resources may just dry up. And that could be that there was a passive source of income or even an active one, and suddenly that's not available to you, or your hours are cut or something like that. And so this could be a time where you really want to change your financial picture. This was in that area of sex. And so that means that your sexual relationship is something that you might be thinking a lot about. So now this takes us to Gemini Sagittarius. So Washwali, this one's yours. We talked about this a little bit already. So this eclipse is about information and the accuracy of what you're receiving. So you might not feel you have enough information, or that you don't feel certain about the relation of the information that you have. We already talked about the negative self-talk, but this also can bring difficulties around a legal matter, around contracts, around government regulations, or if you do something where you need a professional license, there can be holdups, or if you're looking for a building permit, any of those types of things. This can also disrupt travel or dealings with people from foreign countries.
Well, this is a time in history where, whether you're, a Gemini or a less entertaining Sagittarian, sorry, I just had to get that jab in there. I think most people are feeling like the nucleus of their stress is that there's so much distraction, there's so much of things being hidden and obscured and deliberately withheld, so that you can't get the information that you want. There's so much censorship going on. It's a time where most people are feeling like, if I could just get some information and find out what was going on, I'd be able to go into a higher level of stress management and life management. But, we're being lied to. Things are being hidden. There's so much duplicitous, poisoned wells out there that I think whether you're a Gemini or not, most people are feeling stressed because they just don't know what's coming.
Well, and this is all the keywords for a Gemini eclipse. But the solution always comes back to the same thing, which is trusting yourself that you can handle things. That whether you know the information or not, you trust yourself that you will make the right decisions, that you can go forward. And this is what we've done for generations. It's just now there is plenty of people telling us, and by people, these are the nameless, faceless people online, who are telling us not to trust ourselves, but instead to trust whatever they're selling.
Right.
So if we just trust ourselves, and it starts by reminding yourself of when you did things correctly in the past, when you made good decisions, that when you do an affirmation, that you pull information from your past to back it up, that's the strongest affirmation. If somebody says to me, I keep affirming that I have $1 million, like that's great. But if you affirmed instead, like, I'm going to have Chinese food tonight, nothing's stopping me. You can get Chinese food. You can get it, you can drive over to the Chinese restaurant. You can call the DoorDash guy. You can do all of these different things. So building that to say, I know I can do something because I've been able to do it in the past, so I can do just a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. That's what causes you to be successful and to let go of stress,
Right. There's a spiritual truth that I find really is a great neurological tonic. And the spiritual truth is that when you focus on what's good and true, then the divine can create an inflow in your life that assures that you cannot create a learning experience you do not need, that everything you're creating is what you need when you need it in order to get the highest and greatest growth out of your life here. And you can't create your lessons before you needed them or after you needed them. So you're creating what you need when you need it. And you don't need to second guess yourself. You don't need to get in your head. You just need to trust that you have a partnership, a mutual partnership with the universe, that it ensures that a side effect of that mutual relationship is that you are on a self-corrective guidance system. And no matter what you are creating, it's exactly what you needed for your growth at this time. Yeah. And, just being able to take out that constant way that we go back and forth in our mind, and the huge fluctuations, the high and low pressures we create internally with our thinking. If we can get that to a real stable place where when the stresses that want to, come up from behind the knees and kick you out from your legs, or the stresses that hit you on the head that want to knock you over from the top, it gives you more of that weebles wobble, but they don't fall down kind of resiliency to say, okay, it took me in a direction I didn't want to go, but there's a higher and greater good for it. So I'm going to surrender, be grateful, and just focus on what the gift is in this.
Yes, I think you said the key word there, and that's resilience. We are resilient. We come out of the womb really vulnerable, and we survive. And this has been happening for generations. You couple that with an eternal soul, and you can count on your resilience in things. So yes, I agree. It's very true. So should I talk to the Cancer and Capricorns out there?
Oh yeah, let's get to them all if we can, sweetheart. Absolutely.
So Cancer and Capricorns, this eclipse is about security and your reputation. So this may affect your career and how others see you. This could mean a job change. It also makes you feel an awareness of your home. So it's possible that you're looking at changing residences, or you're having difficulty with a family member. If you're house hunting during this time, I'm so sorry, because it's such a tough time to find a good place that's reasonable. So you might be feeling stuck and powerless at this time. The eclipse is asking you to take your power back. Now for Leo and Aquarius, you guys, this is the awareness. This eclipse brings the awareness that you might be living small, that you might be feeling unfulfilled because you are not living the big life you could be. So you might have this overwhelming desire for excitement and fulfillment and happiness. And this could cause you to leave a profession, to seek out something different. But at the same time, you could be overwhelmed by what's going on in the world and wanting to make a difference. And so there's a desire to create change and to create new things, but also you kind of want to create a whole new world. So do your own world. Don't try to change the external world, but change what is right here in front of you. And then finally for Virgo and Pisces, this is when unnamed or unrecognized fears can take over. So you might not be sleeping, or you're having nightmares, or you're having just really strange dreams. And so there is this need to recognize what's in your control and what's out of your control. This is also a time where habits could be ruling your life, where you are intending to do something good, but you get caught into the old habit, and then maybe you're punishing yourself or things like that. So you might be focused on eating habits and just daily routine things. And so to start with, there's some great materials now online for changing habits. That the book Atomic Habits by James Clear is really excellent. So I recommend that for a lot of clients. But just for now, the cure for fear, any fears, is curiosity and faith. And those two things will make you, just so brave and so able to recognize you are an eternal soul. And this is just this big experiment that you're going through to learn and grow. So have fun with it.
That's wonderful advice, sweetheart. Did we go around the wheel, or did we miss someone?
Nope, that was the round the wheel. And so on the YouTube channel, the video that is already up, which is on the lunar eclipse, also talks about more detail about financial picture for each sign, as well as relationships and home and family. So you can get more information there. There's also some wonderful astrologers out there who, everybody, of course, all of us are putting out our content now about the eclipses. So, it's really good to go out there and use this, because, as I said before, this is the GPS that the universe gave us to direct our lives.
That's beautiful. Is there anything coming up that you can see that that's gotten your attention on the horizon?
Well, I think that there are the interesting challenges out there, and with every challenge, just like the fact that any poison plant out there in the world tends to grow next to its remedy. I think that the challenges that we have, also there are lots of remedies for us. And so, but I really think that if we can just be quiet for a little while, Gemini energy does want to consume lots and lots of information. So the energy is kind of like a radio. You can always change the channel. So consider, like, if you are listening to something and it's stressing you out, change the channel. And sometimes you may even find just listening to music that has no lyrics is the solution.
Right. Yeah, nicely said. So, Donna, I know that getting a good astrology reading can be very important in the know thyself quest, in the understanding how the various invitations to grow ebb and flow in the year that we're experiencing. And I would think that this would be a time in history where most people it's really important to get a good astrology reading. So if somebody were to go to your website, go to YouTube and watch you and reach out, what advice would you have for somebody as far as what the benefit they could get, how it would be useful for them, especially a first-time person who's never had an astrology reading that may need to be getting educated on how it's of value?
So the interesting thing about astrology is, because the planets move at a regular rate, we can predict. We can say that this particular aspect is going to happen at these very specific periods in your life. And because of that, if you come to me and you say, life is really stressful and everything's really difficult, I can actually say, well, it gets better on this day. This is when this, set of traffic or difficulty in your road is over. And I think people find that quite reassuring.
Yeah. Everybody wants to know when to shit or get off the pot.
Yes. So additionally, the natal chart tells us that where your talents and obstacles lie. Now, people in olden times, astrology was looked at in a more fatalistic way, is that, you were fated to become king or fated to stay a peasant or something like that. Mm. But as we have evolved, we've recognized that we have choice. So that's why I talk about it as a GPS. You can stay on the road you're on, or you, once knowing what's ahead, can get off of that road. So sometimes people ask me, when am I going to lose my job, or, when am I going to be happy, or all of these things. And those things are still your choice. When we look at your chart, we are looking at when things are probably can, give you opportunities, or probably give you challenges. And we can be quite accurate. We can say, okay, here's the dates where you're under stress. But if you have that, you can channel the energy into something else. So, for example, I see maybe some health stress for a client who then tells me that they're going under cosmetic surgery in that week. And I say, oh, that's wonderful. That's your medical stress, because you're going to have swelling and then you want to hide and etc. And it will take some time to heal. And so the energy gets channeled. And that's how we can use even the obstacles that we see as something that actually catapults us towards our goal.
And, I don't think you can ask more from any modality of wisdom than how to take this moment and get the potential out of it for why you're here and what you have to learn and to offer. So that's seems to me that if that is of something of value to you, that you want to be going to Donna Stellhorn's YouTube channel, because that's low-hanging fruit. That's just good quality low-hanging fruit. And in the time that we have left, sweetheart, I'm going to be hugely generous and give you a whole 3 to 4 minutes to share anything else that you would like to for this time with people, bring anything to their attention, or to just, circle back and bring closure to what you've been sharing.
Well, I think probably the most important thing, because eclipses are something that is fairly unique. They happen, 2 or 3 times a year. This time we have 2 sets of eclipses, this set, and then we'll have November and December. But this square between Saturn and Uranus is quite unique. And as we see, the contrast of the breakthrough of landing on the planet Mars versus the breakdown of what they went through in Texas, where they thought they could depend on their grid, and then disruption happened. It is, how you are preparing for the future. They didn't just happen to land on Mars. They were planning it for a long, long time.
Right.
In Texas, they were given this this power company, and maybe they didn't have a way to investigate all of this type of, perhaps the governments were suggesting they take it and didn't give them an option. But then, we know that the ones who had an emergency kit, who had a generator, who had these things, which we are told always to get, I'm in California where there's earthquakes, you're in Florida where there's hurricanes.
Yeah.
And so the people who had the emergency kit ready weathered the storm better. So the Saturn-Uranus square is our warning that the things that we take as being permanent are not so, and they can change in an instant. And so other astrologers and I have discussed this, and this can be the beginning of power problems in general, or the phone network going down, or transportation being blocked, or things like that. And we need ways to pivot. The last year of such a disruptive energy has taught us that we really adapt. We know how to make changes. I mean, we went in a day from normal life to completely different life, and we survived. And so we need to look and say, if I get stuck in my home again for a period of time, do I have everything that I need? If the supply chain does get interrupted, can I take care of myself? Because when you can say yes to that, well, then you have plenty of time and energy to create, to write your books, or do your music, or do art, or to do the things that are truly important.
Yes, I love that. And, I got to tell you, Donna, I didn't really think much of astrology until I was studying Ayurveda. And I went to some Vedic astrologers. And they had my chart ahead of time. And I walked in And they all said the same thing to me. The first thing they said to me is when they opened up the door and they saw me, they said, "I knew you'd have a big forehead." And how did you know I'd have a big forehead? And they said, "Because you have prominent Jupiter. Everyone with prominent Jupiter has a giant forehead." And then they said, "You have outstanding teeth and you've never broken a bone in your body." And I said, "I do have outstanding teeth and I've never broken a bone in my body. How do you know that?" And they said, "You have the perfect Saturn. You have the perfect Jupiter and the perfect Saturn. So of course you would have good teeth." I got my teeth cleaned yesterday and my doctor came in and he said, "How do you keep such incredible good dental oral health?" And I said, "I got really good Saturn." Needless to say, he looked at me a little confused, but as long as I paid my bill, it was a happy ending in the end. But
I love that you planted that seed with him.
Yes, and I bring this up to share this with the audience to say, whether you're familiar with astrology, you're not familiar, this is new, this is not new. It is not an airy-fairy thing. There are some solid things about the influences that form our reality. And if you can understand that and you can be in harmony with it, you can have a life that thrives the way the divine design intended us to. And Donna, before we go, I just want to say how much I always enjoy having you on. And one more time, give everybody your contact information before we have to sign off.
Yes, you can go to my YouTube channel and it's just search Donna Stellhorn, or if you want to email me directly, it's donnastellhorn@gmail.com. So it was wonderful to be on. I love your show.
Thank you so much for your generosity of time, sweetheart. And I hope we have you on again. And until we do it again next week, rock on, babies.
You've been listening to You Are What You Love with author Vaishali. To order Vaishali's book, You Are What You Love, or to schedule a private self-emergent session with Vaishali, visit youarewhatyoulove.com. Thanks for joining us, and remember, you are what you love, and you love whatever you give your attention to. So love wisely.